We're about ready to begin.
Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. I see that there are many seats here in front, so all the people with great anova, please come forward so we could have everyone seated. There are many seats. I think at this point, even if it says reserved, the reserved people already took their seats. If you see somebody come in who you think should have a reserved seat, then you're welcome to give them your seat. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished Rosh Yeshiva, Rosh Kollel, Choshev Rabbanim, our esteemed Hanhala, faculty, staff, and administration, our board of directors, Tomchei HaYeshiva, all of our friends and guests here and listening to our live stream, all of our Talmidei HaYeshiva who are the huge beneficiaries of this Chanukas Habayis, and with tremendous siyata d'shmaya from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. More than 2 years ago, during the hot months of July and August, we began preparing for a major renovation of our Bais Medrash. We had moved into this building, I think it was 2002, for the school year 2002. And we were in great need to address the disrepair then. The roof had major leaks. 6 or 7 huge garbage cans became permanent fixtures. Sforim shranks were of 4 different models and sizes, cracked tiles, worn out carpet, poor lighting from its inception, antiquated AC system, and the list goes on and on. The pasuk says in Parshas Nitzavim, "V'shav Hashem Elokecha es shavuscha v'richamecha." Hashem will bring us back from our captivity and will have compassion on us. Rashi comments, and the Chavetz Chaim has a whole piece on this, that from this pasuk we see the promise of the Geula, the final redemption, where we will see the binyan bayis shlishi b'mherav yameinu. Chazal say that when the Geula happens, all of the Batei Midrashos will travel to Eretz Yisrael and take residence there, as our President Marcus Lapchik mentioned earlier today. With tremendous siyata d'shmaya and with the help of so many of our friends and donors, we can hope to see this Bais Medrash in Yerushalayim soon, and not the one with all the leaks, cracks, and faulty AC. Today is also a celebration and a simchas HaTorah of sorts for our Bnei Yeshiva. They've been learning in a makeshift Bais Medrash, which was relocated to the dining room, causing an avalanche of makeshift dining areas, minimal classroom space, no Otzer Sforim available. At the conclusion of this program and when the music plays, we can all dance with tremendous simcha. And let's plan to do it together for this amazing Kiddush Shem Shemayim. When Hatzlacha is seen, it has many friends. The South Florida community has grown and flourished with the help of many of the people sitting in this room and who represent multiple Mosdos HaTorah. To our many friends and supporters, on behalf of all the Rosh Yeshiva and Board of Directors, and all of our 1,300 plus students, thank you for joining us here today. We hope you enjoy our brief but robust program that will conclude with the dancing and the music. Thank you very much. Two housekeeping items. Please, there are more seats in the front, so we ask you if you can fill them up. And also, we'd like to call up our founding Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Benson Heitner, to begin the program with Tehillim. Rabbi Heitner.
Shir lamalos, esei nayel harim, meyayin yavo hezri. Ezri meyim Adonai, osei shamayim v'aretz. Al yitein lamot laglecha, al yonum shomrecha. Hinei lo yonum v'lo yishan, shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzolcha yad minecha. Yom HaShemesh lo yakeka, v'yareach b'loila. Adonai yishmarcha mikol ra, yishmor es nafshecha. Adonai yishmar tzeisko v'oecha, me'atov yad olam.
Shira malos mi mamakim krosicha Adonai. Adonai shim'a b'koli tiyena oznecha kashuvos lekol tachanunoi. Im avonos tishmor ya Adonai mi ya'amod. Ki imcha haslicha leman tivorei. Ki visi Adonai ki v'son nafshi v'lidbaro hochalti. Nafshi ladonoi mi shomrim laboker, shomrim laboker. Yachel Yisrael el Adonai ki im Adonai chesed ve'arbei mofidus. V'hu yifteh es Yisrael mikol avonosov.
Thank you for joining us for this tremendous covet HaTorah. A big Yasher Koach to the many people who helped make this new Heichal HaTorah and Bais Medrash a reality. You know who you are, and from the bottom of our hearts, we thank you. Our beautifully renovated Bais Medrash is housed in our newly dedicated Heichal HaTorah, Zichron Yitzchak Isaac. Rav Yitzchak Isaac ben Rav Asher HaKohen Zatzal was a big Talmid Chacham who understood and appreciated Chashivas HaTorah. He spent his life learning as much as he could, whenever he could, always making Torah a priority. Although he made his parnasa as a businessman, that was not what defined him. When his Gemara was open in front of him, nothing else existed. He would learn for hours each night, and he passed down that Avas HaTorah to his children and grandchildren. They learned so much from his Mesiras Nefesh for Inyanei Kedusha and for Torah, and inherited the special gene from him. Not only is the Heichal HaTorah named the Ilui Nishmaso, our Mechanchim Kola, with 40 Rebbeim learning each night, is named for him as well. The zechus of all the learning that takes place in this Heichal HaTorah by our Talmidim, Rebbeim, and the many others that enter this building should be a tremendous aliyah for the neshama of Rav Yitzchak Isaac ben Rav Asher HaKohen, and a legacy to his family, Be'ezus Hashem. And now, as we all gather here today to mark the completion of the entire Heichal HaTorah and celebrate the tremendous amount of learning that takes place in its Bais Medrash, it seems only natural to remember and acknowledge one very special individual. Our yeshiva has been zocha to have many outstanding Rebbeim, and Rabbi David Sharfman Zatzal was a very special and integral part of our yeshiva for over 20 years. First as a high school Rebbe, and then as a dedicated mashkiach of Bais Medrash Zichron Ezra. The care that Rabbi Sharfman had for every need of every Talmud was extraordinary, and the mark that he left on his Talmidim was permanent. And so, the yeshiva decided that we will be dedicating one of the walls in this new Bais Medrash in memory of Rabbi Sharfman. How appropriate for a Rebbe who devoted his life to the Talmidim, who learned in our Bais Medrash day and night. A little over a year ago, a few alumni reached out to me to ask how they can do something in memory of the Rebbe who changed their lives and whose loss continues to be felt each day. I told them about the Bais Medrash wall dedication we were planning on doing. These alumni immediately jumped on the idea, and they said that not only do they want to participate, but they want to get others to participate as well. And from there, the project grew as over 100 alumni, family, and friends from across the country came together to be a part of this special Zecher. Yehi Zecho Baruch. Rabbi Sharfman's family and many of those who participated have come here today to join in the Chanukas Habayis and to remember a Rebbe whose impact continues to be felt. On behalf of the Rosh HaYeshiva, thank you all for coming. It means so much to us. I'd like to now ask our Rosh HaYeshiva, Rabbi Naiman, to give Divrei Bracha.
Baruch Maboim, B'Shem Hashem. I want to welcome all the parents, friends, Hanhola, Rabbeim, donors, and of course, our very Choshev Talmidim. A special welcome to our alumni who came from far and wide, from New York, and flew in for this occasion. We take a lot of pride in the fact that we have such dedicated alumni who come and share this beautiful simcha with us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Also, a special note, I want to note the presence of the Rothenberg family, who also flew in from out of town. Mr. Rothenberg Zatzal was very close to the yeshiva and is one of the reasons why we are here today. Thank you for coming in. We made a special, the Rothenberg Way is a street outside named in his memory, Yehi Zichro Baruch. Also, I would like to acknowledge the presence, who we'll hear from later on, the Yeshiva of Yeshiva Chavis Chaim in Queens, Rabbi Grinblatt, also Rabbi Apachinsky, Rosh Yeshiva in Chavis Chaim in Queens. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us. And of course, last but not least, my dear friend and colleague, Rabbi Benson Heitner, who was the founding Rosh Yeshiva. He started it all. He doesn't always admit to it, but he better admit to it today. Thank you, Rabbi Chait, for flying in. Over the last couple of days, I've been thinking a little bit about this beautiful Bais Medrash that we're zocheh to. I said to myself, why? Why are we zocheh to this beautiful Bais Medrash? How could it be? Financially, physically, how could it be? And Baruch Hashem, we're filling it up. Why? What's going on? How could this happen on both sides? And I said to myself, I saw in the parsha, I think I found the answer in this week's parsha. I found the answer and I got tremendous chizuk. The pasuk brings the tzavim, yesterday was read, ki ha-mitzvah zos, the mitzvah of tshuva, the mitzvah of learning Torah, Talmud Torah, whatever different mefarshim say, it's lo rechoka hi, it's not far away from us. Rather, ki karov elecha davar mi'od, it's right there, it's touching you, it's right there. Beficha uvevavcha la'asoso, it's in your mouth, in your heart to do it. You can do it if you want. And there's a famous, well-known Medrash, the Yalkut Shimoni, that brings the story of Eliyahu Navi, who was walking along with I guess you can call him a very negative person about Torah and Yiddishkeit, and that person was making fun of Torah and Rabbi Eliyahu Navi. And Eliyahu Navi said to him, no, so what do you do? I'm a fisherman. What about learning Torah? He says, well, I don't have enough brains, IQ to figure it out. I can't learn Torah, it's not for me. They went back and forth. Eliyahu Navi says to him, I don't understand. Who gave you the ability, the knowledge, the wherewithal of how to build, create your nets, and how to fish, and how to bring all the other resources together? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You made a kal v'chomer. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you the resource, the ability, the know-how to go ahead and figure out how to be a successful fisherman, kol shkein, kal v'chomer, he would give you the ability to go ahead and learn and teach Torah, to do mitzvos. Ki karov elecha goes on this pasuk because it's so close. Hashem says, you do your share. You do your share. Put in your giyah, put in your effort. Yogato matzasa. If you try, you accomplish. You can gain it. You can get it. You become a Talmud Chacham. You become a Ben Torah. Become a Yari Shamayim. Rabbi says it's in our hands. It's in your hands. What that meant to me, Rabbi, I heard this Chazal. What it means to me is it's not just Torah. It's not just the learning of Torah, but obviously whatever facilitates the learning of Torah, beautiful Bais Medrash, which we hope will enable and motivate and inspire many, many hundreds of Talmidim, thousands of Talmidim in future years to learn and study on a higher level. Of course, HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes it easy. We have the schus in Rabbosai of who? I always tell myself, I tell people, it's in the schus of, number one, the parents. Parents are moser nefesh to send their children. Obviously, we know it's not cheap. No complaints to Rabbosai, please. But it's not cheap to send your child to a Torah chinuch. The parents are moser nefesh. The Rabbeim are moser nefesh. The Rabbeim made and built this yeshiva and other yeshivas. It's the Rabbeim, it's the donors, it's the people, the friends of the yeshiva. All these people that Mesiras Nefesh is all inculcated. Yogato Masasa Tamin. It represents today's Nes Gomer is a manifestation, a result of the Yigiyah, the hard work, the Mesiras Nefesh of everyone in this room. Again, the parents, the Talmidim, the Rabbeim, Hanhola, and the donors. Rabbosai, we have to tell ourselves, it's Erev Rosh Hashanah. This pasuk gives me chizuk. That means to me that we can do it. Everyone here should turn to himself and say, I can build a Makam Torah. I can learn Torah. I can teach Torah. I can be a Torah mitzvah on the highest level. Ki karav elecha davar me'od beficha uvevavcha la'asoso. Rabbosai is with this feeling and argasha that we all came together, such a beautiful crowd. I will quote what the Mefarshim bring, the Medrash brings, Rashi brings the special bracha by the Mishkan. Yiratzon shetishre shchina b'maiste yedechem. We should be zocha. The shchina should be shora. We should be zocha to talmidim hagunim who become tremendous gedolim. And again, thank you all for coming. I'd like to at this point introduce Rabbi Grinblatt, who came to us, I mentioned before, the Rosh Yeshiva of Chavis Chaim in Queens. He is not just, his yichus is number one, I guess first and foremost, now he's the Rosh Yeshiva of Chavis Chaim in Queens. We talk to him, ask him shaylas. If the three of us, three Rosh Yeshivas currently, if had any question, we call him up and say, it's your job to paskin for us. We listen to him, we don't listen to him, but we call him and ask him shaylas. But that's not his only yichus. He came many, many years ago. I think it was in 1985, right? In 1985, he came, a year after Rabbi Cheit came. He joined him. I only came a couple years later, but he came and built the Mossad from scratch. Now it's easier, both. It's much easier now. We have a Makom Torah, we have a shame, we have a good name, good reputation. What Rabbi Grinblatt did with Rabbi Cheit at that time is a nisim that we bear and we enjoy the fruits. And he is well respected. He's someone who answers our shaylas, as I mentioned, and he's someone who commands, not demands, commands the respect of any gadol b'Torah. Rabbi Grinblatt.
Thank you, Rabbi Nyman. As I mentioned to a few people, we've come a long way from 41st Street. We had a little rented storefront. They had a display window, and that became a classroom. And we put reflecting tape on it so that the sun doesn't beat in it, but it didn't really work. So that was about general temperature of about 80 degrees, a couple other classrooms, but somehow we made it. Then when we moved into 71st Street, this was already, Layla. Not too long thereafter, we got the campus, Torah MS, which I guess it's the same campus, but it doesn't look at all the same as it was when we bought it. A few more buildings, a few more things. It's quite a bit different. And we actually signed the contract to buy this property when I was still in Florida. The sellers kind of reneged on the deal, and we had a whole ASEC. But in the end, the deal did go through, but I had already been left. But I feel like I just had a little yad in getting this as well. And Baruch Hashem, we're here today. And I wanted to address what I feel a little bit, what these renovations are going to accomplish, Bais Hashem. The Bais Medrash, not just the Bais Medrash. They've redone the dining room and so the hallways, and the whole building is so much more beautiful and functional. And what does that do for us, besides the fact that it's something to admire? I'd like to focus on an important concept. We know many Ma'amrei Chazal, and I'm not going to go into any length quoting, but that Torah generates a tremendous simcha. Simchas HaChaim, a sense of satisfaction, a sense of true happiness, and deep joy in life. However, if we're going to be honest, we have to observe that it's not always so simple. And many people struggle, many of our Talmidim struggle, and you wouldn't describe their experience as an experience of simcha. And the truth of the matter is, there's a pasuk in the next parsha that we will read. It's not technically next week's parsha because Rosh Hashanah is coming up. In Parshas Hazinu, the pasuk says, Yarov kamator lichi tizal katal imrasi. The Torah is compared to rain, and the Torah is compared to dew. And Rashi brings down from Chazal that the Torah is compared to rain, but rain sustains the entire world. Without rain, nothing would exist. And dew also sustains the world. So why, after we compare the Torah to rain, do we also compare the Torah to dew? And Rashi says that rain isn't always pleasant. Right? If you have to walk someplace, I remember one of my last visits to Miami before this trip, there was a big rainstorm on Yom Tov, and I was walking from Shul, I was davening in all the way back, drenched. There were puddles on the street, and it was hot. No fun. So rain is not always pleasant. But tal never bothers anybody. The dew comes on the ground, it's beautiful, it's wonderful. So I was bothered by the question, if that's the case, why is the Torah compared to rain? Why not just compare it to dew? And the truth of the matter is, a number of Mefarshim and Rashi asked this question. One of the answers given, the one I'm focusing on, is it happens to be a fact that sometimes Torah is like rain. Sometimes Torah is not pleasant. It's hard. It's difficult. And if I could take a certain leap here, it doesn't really qualify in Chafetz Chaim circles as being mukhrach, but this is a speech, not a shmooze, so I think I could take a little liberty. I wonder if the reason why the rain is mentioned before the tal is because very often when you start learning, that's when it's the most difficult. And to grow and develop to a point that it's a simcha doesn't happen necessarily by itself. And that's really the job of a yeshiva. Certainly yeshiva high school, where people are really beginning to dig into their learning, and a Beis Medrash, the first years of Beis Medrash, the formative years of Beis Medrash, that's where the skills and the ability and the attitude and the commitment are developed so that they could grow from matar, from the rain to the tal to the dew, to appreciate the beauty of Torah and to benefit from that great simcha. And to be yotze the halacha l'Moshe Misinai, that when you speak, you have to refer to this past week's parsha. In Parshas Vayelach, Nitzav and Vayelach were laying together. The Bechor Shor, really Rabbi Naiman referenced this pasuk. I was getting a little nervous, but he left room for me to make this point. The Bechor Shor, one of the Balei Tosas, says on the pasuk, says, "Al nifleisi mimenu v'lo rechokahi." The Torah is not nifleis, separated from you, v'lo rechokahi. It's not distant. And it says nifleis, he says, refers to something that's impossible. Torah is not something that's impossible to achieve. But not only that, lo rechokahi. Rechoka is possible, but requires great amal v'torach. And the Torah is not rechoka, not amal v'torach. And the problem is that's not true. The Torah does require amal v'torach. Lo yagati umatzasi altamin. Rabbi Naiman quoted yagati umatzasi. But the converse is lo yagati. If I didn't work, I didn't put in effort, and I claim to have found Torah, don't believe him. Torah dafka must require work and difficulty and Torah. So what's he talking about? I think what he means is that when a person really becomes engaged in Torah, the amal and the Torah itself is a pleasure. Mashal l'mahadav hadom, if I may, lahavdil, but I'll give you a mashal. A young man loves basketball. So he goes and plays basketball, he enjoys the game. Basketball is amal v'torah. It's a lot of work. You got to run up and down the court. You got to jump. You got to cut from side to side. You're really straining yourself. But somebody who loves basketball, do they feel that it's an amal v'torah? They feel that's a pleasure. That's what I want to do. That's the ultimate goal. The amal and Torah, a pleasure, doesn't feel like an amal and a Torah. It feels like a pleasure. It's what you want to do. I believe that having a facility that is comfortable, that is suitable. I told everybody I didn't realize how dark it was in the Bais Medrash until I saw the new Bais Medrash. The lighting, the functionality, the beauty, it's not just the Bais Medrash, the dining room and the entire building creates an atmosphere which encourages the young men in their learning and makes it that much easier to reach that state where Torah is a simcha and it's not an amal v'torah. And everybody who participated in helping make this happen, in any way, whatever, has a share in that and will achieve tremendous reward, but not only that, tremendous nachas, because you could look at the talmidim that are steiging, that are growing in the yeshiva, and you could feel in your heart, and rightfully so, that I have had a share in that. Whether it's a big share or a small share, a share. And certainly, anybody who helps them and the talmidim who are learning in this building will grow and will steig, and hopefully, Bezat Hashem, we'll all see a lot of nachas from them, and we'll all be zolcha together. L'haglu b'nei Mashiach Tzidkenu b'mehera v'yameinu.
Thank you, Rabbi Grinblatt. Our next speaker, Mr. Benson Heitner, was born and raised in New Zealand before moving to Sydney, Australia. Mr. Heitner, I hope I get this right. So far, so good. In 1992, he co-founded Cambridge Mercantile, a foreign exchange and payment firm with Jacques Feldman, and they independently grew that company into what eventually became the largest privately held foreign exchange firm in the world. That's just to get your attention. That is not the yichus that Mr. Heitner speaks about. I know personally. I met him a number of times when we were first introduced. I asked him to come speak to the Talmidim of the yeshiva based on our initial meeting. The yichus that Mr. Heitner holds most dear to him, as he told our Talmidim, are the kshorim that he forged with the gedolim of the previous generation from his time in the yeshivas in Eretz Yisrael. His commitment to Das Torah, his commitment to helping building mostos across the world, has made him a dear friend of the Torah world, and in particular today, to Yeshiva Torah's Chaim, Torah Samis. Ladies and gentlemen, please give our attention to Mr. Benson Heitner.
Good afternoon. At first I thought I was getting a break. They started off Rabbi Tzion. I said, oh great, they've moved me ahead of the schedule. Rabbi Tzion Chait. So anyway, it's still, thank God, nobody said anything that I was going to say, so I've still got a clear shot at it. Choshev Rabbonim, Rosh Yeshiva, board, supporters of the yeshiva, and guests, to the Chanukas Habayis, to this new, renovated and fixed up Bais Medrash and Heichal HaTorah Zichron Yitzchak Isaac. It looks like YTCTE is a glutton for punishment. I had the pleasure to be a guest speaker at an event for the yeshiva a few years ago, and it looks like I wasn't that bad because they've invited me back again to speak. And it didn't take that much convincing to have me come back to Miami. It seems like you guys like Canadians here. Last time I spoke, there was Baruch Levine and I, and this time we have Reb Shlomo Simcha and myself. But I suppose I'm not a real Canadian. I'm a New Zealand Australian who has an accent that doesn't sound Canadian nor Australian anymore. And Shlomo Simcha is really an expat British that lived for many years in Canada and has now moved to Florida. I've been involved in the renovation and construction of this beautiful new building, and I've been involved in the construction, involved in several Mezuzah HaTorah. The more I became involved, I came to the realization that this just wasn't another yeshiva. I haven't had the pleasure or privilege to really get to know the whole Chofetz Chaim movement. But I got to know the Rosh Yeshiva, the Anhola, the board, especially Reb Moshe Bernstein, who was amazing the whole time. And I saw a passion and involvement that you don't really see in other moisters. As a result, I've also had the schus, the pleasure and privilege to be able to donate the lobby on behalf of my wife and myself. And it's a real schus. I wanted to make a special shout out to Mordechai Senderovitz, I believe you're here somewhere, who was the one who introduced me to this amazing Moshe. Thank you, Mordechai, really. I mentioned to a close friend of mine, on and off Chavrusa, Rabbi Grinblatt, that I was to be the guest speaker today. Now, he himself, in his own right, very, very special person, been involved in chinuch for the 35 years. And I mentioned he sent me an email when he heard that I was going to be a guest speaker. And he sent me an email, and I think what he writes in the email, I'd like to read it out. I normally don't like reading out other people's comments, but I don't think I could have said it any better. And he says, well, here goes. I don't think that there are enough shining adjectives in the English language to adequately describe these holy moistus. I will share a few that I think most aptly describe Chofetz Chaim and more than 90 branches around the world. They are humble, dedicated, committed to Torah values in the highest level, normal, daring, bold, willing to think outside the box and do what others don't even dream of, all in the service of Hashem. Their Talmidim and Rabbonim walk b'hatznei leches, not asking for kavod and never pushing their own agenda at the expense of others. They're doing all this while hidden in plain sight. They have schools, yeshivas, mesivtas, and outreach organizations in small towns and large cities. The ehrlichkeit, bikkush emes, and positive midas that they will instill in their Talmidim is so evident that one can only be in awe of them and their accomplishments. Wow, I think it says it all. There's a famous Gemara on the Posik Oz Yoshir that we say every day, Zeh Keli Vanvehu. And the Gemara in Shabbos, Tav Kuf Lamud Gimel, Amud Bais, learns from this Posik the inyan of Hiddur Mitzvah. Hisno lefon of a mitzvahs, asay lefon of sukkah no, lulav no, shayfa no, tzitzis no. Which means do these mitzvahs in a beautiful way in front of the Bnei Shalom with a nice sukkah, a nice lulav, a nice shayfa, a nice tzitzis, which happens to be very appropriate now that the holidays are approaching. This means that they interpret the word v'anvehu to mean noi, a loshon of beauty. However, it's interesting to note that the Onkelos translates the word v'anvehu to have the shorish of the word of neveh, of dwelling. And he translates Zeh Kelim v'anvehu, Dain Elokai v'avne lo migdasho. This is my God, and I will build for him a migdash. That's what it means, v'amvehu. I'll build a migdash. How wonderful it is that this beautiful base of Medrash and Heichal HaTorah, we are able to mekayim both meanings of the word, misnol lefon of b'mitzvahs, and build such a beautiful mokem limud. I think it's very, very appropriate that it happens to be, as was mentioned, it's the 90th Yortzeit of the Chofetz Chaim, Chof Daled Elul, 1933. And I'd like to quote a letter written by the Chofetz Chaim to encourage people to be mishtatef in the yeshiva in Baranovich, where his Talmud, Rabbi Elchanan, was Rosh Yeshiva. In this letter was written exactly 100 years ago, 1923, Tov Reish Pei Gimel, and his words are just as appropriate today on the Chanukas Habayis of this Beis HaMedrash. He starts off by referring to the same posuk which I just quoted, Zeh Kelim B'Aveyu, and Onkelos Pshat Dain Elokai v'avne li migdasho. The Chofetz Chaim asks, why in the times of Shlomo Melech, when he built the Beis HaMikdash, did he use such materials as wood that would only last for a limited amount of time? And he answers that he wanted to allow Yidden from every generation to participate in the building of the Beis HaMikdash by paying for the repairs. And this can also be seen from the Pusik, V'osu li Mikdash v'shachanti b'soichom, and the next Pusik says, V'chein tasu, and Rashi explains, L'doireis im yoivad echad min ha-kelim, for future generations, if one of the kelim are lost, by repairing or making a new keli, you are still participating in the Binyan Beis HaMikdash. So too, today, where B'avoneseinu we don't have a Beis HaMikdash, every Yid has a responsibility and the ability to participate in the building of the Beis HaMikdash in their own times. And he states, Kol mi sh'mesayeya ato lebinyan Beis HaMikdash hazeh hu mamish k'moi sh'mesayeya lebinyan Beis HaMikdash. All those who participate in building this binyan, it is as if they are helping in the construction of the Beis HaMikdash mamish. And just as Rashi comments, for Osuli Migdash, Li Lishmi, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will rest his Shechin in all the places and all times where they have built the Shema. What a schus to be able to participate in this magnificent building, Zeh Keli V'Amvehu. As it says in the Posuk, V'osuli Migdosh V'shochanti B'soichom, the Alshich learns, B'soichoi loinema b'soichom, Kloime b'chol echad v'echad. The Posuk doesn't say that Rabbeinu Shalom will rest his Shechina in it, it will dwell in them, which he translates to mean that every individual is a potential to be a Beis HaMikdash. So when this yeshiva produces such amazing Talmidim, or being Mekayim Isnol Afon of the mitzvahs, and at the same time we're instilling and building in every single Talmud a Beis HaMikdash Ma'at, a Beis HaMikdash Lishmei. We lined at the end of Parashat Vayelech yesterday the words, V'ato kis v'lochem es ashir azois v'lamdo es b'nei Yisrael simu b'fihem. And you shall write this song and teach b'nei Yisrael and place it in their mouths. This is referring to the Shira in the Parashat Azina that we will line in a few weeks. The Gemara learns from the Posuk that every Yid has an obligation to write his own Sefer Torah. In other words of the Rambam, Kis v'lochem Torah sheyesh ba shira zu. Write a Torah. Each person individually has a responsibility to write a Sefer Torah which has this shira in it. And the obvious question is, why do we use the word shira instead of the word Torah? Why doesn't it say v'kis v'msat Torah zois? Why do we have to refer to it indirectly as shira, or the Torah which has the shira? And I think the words of Rav Shach, which he has in his Ksovim, are just absolutely amazing, and they move me every time I say them. And he says this: the reason is because Torah itself is Shira, the song of our life, Shiras Chayenu. We know that we're in Golus and we really can't sing Shira until the Mashiach comes, but there is one and only one song that we have a responsibility to hear at every hour and every opportunity, at any time, at any situation, and that is the song of Torah, because the Torah is our song, and she helps us stand and strengthens us to help prevent us from stumbling and break in spite of the difficult times. And at the end of the Posuk says, teach the children of Yisrael, place it in their mouths. And I feel this means it is incumbent upon each and every one of us to give over this song, to teach our children this beautiful song. And we should do it like a mother delicately feeds a child. Simmer befihem, place it in their mouths delicately. With the help of such amazing yeshivas at Chofetz Chaim and this yeshiva specifically, we will be able to achieve that. I'd like to conclude with a word I heard in person from Rav Kaufman from Yeshiva in Waterbury. I heard it in a Torah Mezuzah conference here. We say every day the bracha in Birchas HaTorah every morning, V'harev no Hashem Elokeinu es divrei soroscha v'finu fias amcha beis Yisrael. Hashem, sweeten the words of Torah in our mouth and the mouths of your people in the house of Israel. And may we find a second blessing, our offspring to know your name and study your Torah for its own sake, lishmo. Both these paragraphs read as two separate requests or tefillas. But Rav Kaufman suggests that the second part is not a separate blessing. He says, if the Torah will be sweet in our mouths, the result, the direct result is if the Torah is sweet in our mouths, then our children will continue the heritage and what we taught them. I think it's very appropriate that we're approaching the end of the year. I'd like to wish everybody not only that the Torah should be sweet in their mouths, that they should have a ksiva chesiva toiva, a good gebenched yor, and lots of Yiddish nachas from our children, obviously. And as was already said, I'd like to finish off with the words of Moshe Rabbeinu, Yehi rotzain shetish cheshchina b'mas yodeichem V'noem Hashem Elokeinu Oleinu, Mas Yodeinu Koinenu Oleinu, Mas Yodeinu Koinenehu. Mazel tov, everybody.
I see that we've developed a standing room crowd, so I'll ask people to, there are plenty of seats here. Please, Rabbanim, please come to the front. Anyone standing, there are plenty of seats over here, so please fill them in. We need an usher to bring the people who think they won't be able to get out, but we're almost at the end of the program. You don't have to worry, you won't get stuck. Our last speaker, Rabbi Moshe Lehrfield, really needs no introduction, especially in South Florida, and especially in this room. He spends hours and hours learning here, 365 days a year. He never goes for the yeshiva calendar. He doesn't get it. He doesn't stop Bein Hazmanim. He doesn't stop for Chanukah break. He doesn't stop on Chol HaMoed. He learns day and night. In between paragraphs of Rishonim, he does a little bit of law. He's become one of the most celebrated attorneys for Greenberg Traurig. And if you ever see him in his office at home, it's literally Bein Hashuras that he's become the best attorney. Moshe wears many hats. He's the vice president of our board of directors for decades. He's been a friend of the yeshiva throughout. And as even Moshe would say, he's the spouse of his dear Rebbitzin, Jennifer Lehrfield, who has herself spent hours and hours on the details, or I should say the headaches of the final finishings. She's probably going to get me in trouble for saying that. But the hat I'm sure he prefers to wear today is that of the son of Rabbi David Lehrfield, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, our beloved Rav in our community. One of the founding board members of our yeshiva, whose hashpah has trickled into our community. His sweetness, his shalom, his Torah, his legacy being continued by the dedication of the Keser David Mizrachvand, as we see. I think that's the hat that Rav Moshe would prefer to wear today. And I give the bracha that the legacy, the memory, the hashpah of Rabbi Lehrfield Zatzal should continue to be showered upon our yeshiva and Bnei Yeshiva for many years to come. Without any further ado, Rabbi Moshe Lehrfield.
Thank you, Rabbi Palgon. You kind of stole half my speech, but that's okay. Oh, Hernan, good to see you. Bershus Imi Morasi. Rosh Yeshivas, Rosh Kollel, Chashuv Rabbanim, Board of Directors, V'chol Kol HaKadosh Hazeh. As Rabbi Palgon mentioned, I'm really speaking here in a dual capacity. On the one hand, I'm speaking as an officer of the yeshiva, as a proud parent of the yeshiva, but I'm also speaking on behalf of the Heller and Lehrfield families in dedication of the Kesser David Mizrachvant that we're celebrating today. It's kind of hard to wrap my head around this, that this project has finally come to fruition. We started this project over 5 years ago. I forgot the exact details. Esty Capel was reminding me she got a grant together with my daughter Nechama, and it brought the idea to my father. Moshe Bernstein keeps telling me it was my father's idea, his dream to renovate this beautiful Bais Medrash. We had a kickoff event. It was a concert that my son gave 5 years ago, and we started the project. And in our wildest dreams, I could not, looking at this beautiful room now, all around, we couldn't imagine that would have come out like this. There's an expression we say at a Bais, Zeh Katan Gadol Yiyeh. Zeh Katan Gadol Yiyeh. This little baby should be a gadol. What does it mean to be a gadol? There's a yesod from the Gra, and the Gra says that if you want to know what a word means, look in the Chumash. The very first time that the word is mentioned in the Chumash, that's the taich of the word. Where do we find the word gadol the first time in the Chumash? Hamara gadol, the sun. What does it mean the sun is the Mara, the great luminary? It's not the biggest. We know, Chazal know, scientists are now first starting to figure it out, but we knew, Chazal know, that there are billions, trillions of stars, most of them that are even bigger than the sun. So what does it mean, Amara Gadol? So the pshat in the Gadol, a Gadol is something that gives chiyus, that gives life, that encourages life, that encourages growth, both in a physical way, in a spiritual way, in a mental way. That's what a Gadol is. If you look at all of our Gedolim are still alive. When we learn in Gemara, we learn in Yeshiva, we always say, Habayis says, Rava says, Taisa says, Rashi says, they're still here, they're still with us. That's what Gedolim are. So that's what we're giving a bracha to a child, that the child should grow up not to be a giver, but to be a taker, to make a mark on the world, to help people out. I remember my Rebbe, Rabbi Groner Zatzal, my Rebbe for probably 4 or 5 years, going back 50 years ago, back when the city was a midbar. He used to always joke, and he used to say, you know, by little children, the whole world, the whole year revolves around one day. What's that day? My birthday. As a child grows older, he starts to look and care about others and to empathize with others. Like it says by Moshe Rabbeinu, Vayigdal, he grew up, Vayetze Elacha Vayarba Sivlosam. That's the mark of a gadol. The other thing about a gadol, the famous story, my uncle, my Rosh Yeshiva, my mentor, Rav Eichenstein, used to always say over a meiser from the Chafetz Chaim. Somebody once came to the Chafetz Chaim to get haskama for a sefer, and the uncharacteristically, the Chafetz Chaim did not give the haskama. And they said to the Chafetz Chaim, I don't understand, this person is so big, he does this, does that. So the Chafetz Chaim says, let's say somebody's born, a normal person, but he's got a giant arm or a giant leg. You don't say he's got a big leg. He's a cripple. Something's not in place. The mark of a gadol, the mark of a great person, is everything fits in perfectly. Everything has its place. and everything fits in perfectly. All the facets make a perfect diamond, make a perfect person, a perfect gadol. I can really say that our father was the quintessential gadol in all respects. When it comes to being a husband, there was no husband like my father. Father, grandfather, great-grandfather, there was nobody like my father. You talk to all the children in my family, and they'll tell you, it was an inside joke, that whenever my father would play with the children, it wasn't just playing, he would get down on the floor and play with them. And if you ask any of my children and grandchildren, they'll tell you the reason why. My father always said, because you can't fall off the floor. You're safe being on the floor. That's what my father did. My father was the most amazing Rebbe, the most amazing teacher, the most amazing friend. At least a half a dozen people came to me tonight and said, you know, there was never such an orator like your father, a speaker like your father. Unlike me, he knew how to keep it short and simple and sweet. And it didn't come easy. My father worked hard. My father came to Miami, I don't know, 70 years ago, whatever it was. It was a midbar. There weren't too many B'nai Torah. There weren't too many Orthodox rabbis. He took over a shul that did not have a mechitza, and he immediately put in a mechitza, and he only took over the shul on the condition that there should be no microphone. There was a big problem, though. The shul was a massive shul, probably bigger than this room even. So, and my father wanted to make a Kiddush Hashem, so he took voice lessons. So he had a voice coach, a voice teacher, and the teacher said, he had a great idea. He says, you live on South Beach, Miami Beach, or a few blocks from the ocean. So this is what my father would do. He goes out on a Friday night, Leil Shabbos, to prepare his drush, and he goes to the ocean. And he's yelling at the ocean. He's projecting his voice, pretending that it's we used to have 1,000 people every Shabbos. He would project his voice, and he's yelling at the ocean, and he's getting carried away, and if you know my father, he was always walking back and forth, and with the hands and the feet, and next thing you know, he gets a tap on his shoulder, like I just got about an hour ago. It's pretty interesting. He gets a tap on his shoulder from a policeman. The policeman said, can I have your identification? Like, who are you? And it was Shabbos. He couldn't carry. He had everything with him. Long story short, they put him in handcuffs, put him in the back of the car, took him to the station, and put him in the crazy house. The good news was that, like most people that I ever come across, the chief of police was one of my father's alumni. He had given a get to the chief of police, and the chief of police recognized him right away and let him out. Obviously, they couldn't drive him back, but the walk wasn't too bad, and he walked back home, and of course, on the walk back, he was able to practice his speech a little bit more. Every single person in this room, and it's funny, since my father was nifter, like hardly a day goes by that I don't get a call from somebody that's got some kind of a story to talk about my father, some kind of an aspect, some facet where my father made their life better. 2 weeks ago, I was coming back from visiting my children in Lakewood. I was waiting in line at the airport, and I guess two Jewish people in front of me, you see a guy with a yarmulke and a beard, so they call it bageling. So of course, we start talking, and within 30 seconds, oh, your father, Rabbi Lehrfield, gave me a get, and he was so kind about it, so nice about it. I get so many calls, dozens and dozens of calls from people, and they'll ask me the same question. They say, since your father was nifter, who's doing gittin in South Florida or in this part of the world? So I give them the names of several people who are doing gittin. Of course, it's twice the price, half the service. And everyone says to me, no, 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 no. I know they could write a get. Anybody could write a get. But who's going to talk to the husband who doesn't want to give the get? Who's going to go to the jail, to the prisons, and convince the husband to give a get? Who's going to convince the wife who doesn't want to get a get? That was a certain talent that my father had that nobody else has. And chaval da'avdim, because I don't see anybody taking over that role very, very quickly. That was my father, well-rounded. And I think it's so apropos, and I think that's why my father was so drawn to this yeshiva, because what this yeshiva does is we create, we make, we help children reach their goals, to be well-rounded, to be b'nei Torah, and most importantly, to have wonderful midos. I remember, I don't know, 25 years ago, a very, very long time ago. So there was a Rebbe in the yeshiva, and he was davening in my father's shul, Mincha Maariv, and my father always spoke between Mincha Maariv. He was makbid gomer, that there should be enough time between Mincha Maariv, so that shouldn't be a tarti desasri. And this Rebbe got up and walked out. So my father called me afterwards and he says, I guarantee you that particular Rebbe was not a Talmud of Rav Henoch. He did not learn in the Chafetz Chaim system. And my father was right. He was the one Rebbe who did not learn in the Chafetz Chaim system, who was not here. A while back, I had the honor, I was attending a Sheva Brachos from Ronnie Cohen's grandson. Ronnie Cohen is here today. He's one of the founders of our yeshiva. I'm not sure we would be here today if not for Ronnie. Thank you, Ronnie. So Ronnie introduced me. I never want to argue or correct Ronnie, but I did this time. Ronnie introduced me and he said, you know, Moshe Lehrfield is the son of Rav Lehrfield, who was one of the builders of South Florida. I said, Ronnie, no. He wasn't one of the builders. He was the builder. I remember how many years ago, Torah's Emes was founded in my living room by my father and Rav Mordechai Shapiro Zatzal. When Torah's Chaim first, or Torah's Emes first, there's so many stories, so many nisim v'nifloos, I can't even begin to talk about it. Max Rothenberg was so involved. You got my father involved. And my father literally was the one who brought Torah's Emes, first Torah's Emes, then Torah's Chaim, to North Miami Beach, which was the anchor of our community. It really made our community. Another mark of a gadol, and this I think was the most unique thing about my father, Zatzal, was that a gadol never stops growing. People used to say about Rav Aaron Kotler, if you saw Rav Aaron Kotler and then you went away and you came back a month later, it was not the same Rav Aaron Kotler. He was a different gadol. He grew. He was always growing. My father, even though he reached incredible heights at very young ages, but he never stopped growing. He never stopped steiging. Towards the end of his life, he said to me that, because he grew up in yeshivas, he never really focused too much on kachim, taharis, and he took it upon himself to start learning zvachim, menachas. And I get a call one night. I think it was 11:30, 11:45, which it's pretty early for me. And my father had he calls me up, says, like he always does, the first thing he does is he apologizes for bothering me, for imposing on me. And he had this tone of his voice. I only heard it a few times previously, and it's usually when he had fallen or gotten hurt or something catastrophic happened. And he calls him and says, Moshe. And there was a pain in his voice. And I said, oh my God, like my heart stopped. And he says, Moshe, you have to come over. This Tosfos was killing me. Had a kasha and a Tosfos, and he knew that I have a lot of svarim in my house, a lot of cheat svarim, secret of my success. He says, bring over all your svarim on whatever Masechta it was, and Chaste Hashem, it was a ritva, asked a kasha, and he was happy, he was able to go to sleep. These are just some of the few things that I wanted to point out. Lastly, before I finish, another mark of a gadol is naisa ba'olim chavero, empathy, feeling for somebody. I remember once visiting my father. It was in the morning, and it was very unusual. Usually my father's like learning an entire morning, and I came to the house, and he was lying down. Are you what's wrong? Are you okay? He said to me that somebody had just come into his office, a younger man from Eretz Yisrael, who decided that he can't make a parnasa in Eretz Yisrael, and he was going to move down to South Florida, and he was getting some kind of a job as a mashgiach or a teacher, and my father was saying to me, and of course he came to my father to help him out, and my father was saying, like, I don't know how what's this person thinking? How's he going to support himself? And of course, the whole thing fell on my father's shoulders. And he was so depressed. He was so depressed. He actually had to lie down. In conclusion, I thank everybody for coming. I have to thank, like I said earlier, I'm here in dual capacity. We have to thank many people on behalf of the yeshiva, but the yeshivas have already done that. On a personal level, there's a few people that I have to thank. First of all, my mother. She lived to 120. Obviously, my father would always say, you never missed an opportunity to say it. My mother, the quintessential, the ultimate Eishes Chayil. I'm asking everybody here as a favor. If my mother volunteers to make you shaver brachas or to drive you, as President Reagan's wife said, just say no. My wife told me last night she just agreed to make 2 giant shaver brachas a week apart. I want to thank my wife. Palagon mentioned, but the hours that she has put in the last month are just mind-boggling. I have to thank Rabbi Chait, who got us involved in this whole thing, Max Rothenberg, all the Rosh Yeshivas. I have to thank Moshe Bernstein. I remember like it was yesterday. Years ago, we were thinking about, should we hire a CEO or whatever title he had at the time. And we were interviewing him, and Rosh Yeshivas, and pardon me, I'm asking Mechila, but this is what happened. The Rosh Yeshivas were very, very nervous because how could we hire a CEO who's not a Rosh Yeshiva? I said, if he's a Rosh Yeshiva, why would he be a CEO? I mean, you can't get any better. He's a Muslim from Yeshiva. He learned in Yeshiva. And I said to them my famous words. I said, he is our LeBron. The problem was, it was a room full of blank stares. Rabbi Lubin said, who's LeBron? I said, there was this guy, LeBron, when he was 17 years old, he signed a contract for $90 million with Nike because they saw what he was going to be. Now, I'm not saying he's good, not good. I could care less. I don't like the guy. I don't follow him. Could care less. But Moshe Bernstein, I said back then, he is our LeBron. He's young, but he is going to take us where we need to go. He has his eye on the ball, always on the ball, and he is our visionary, and he is taking us to where we have to go, and we should keep going. Michael al-Chayil. This beautiful building, this beautiful Meiset is just the beginning. You should see what we're doing on the other campus. It's unbelievable. Achron Chaviv, the person I have to thank the most, our shutuf in this dedication, Harav Dr. Daniel Heller, my son-in-law. Dr. Heller is a brilliant, brilliant physician. He's very humble. In fact, a lot of the protocols that we do today for COVID were invented by Daniel for my father. All the things we're doing today with the, I don't even know what they call them, monocluk, whatever they are. He invented it for my father. He literally kept my father alive for, the doctor said, I remember my father first got sick. I remember when it happened, actually. My father went to Beis Yaakov. He gave his shir. He never missed a shir in Beis Yaakov. He came back, and he looked really, really not so good. His face was all blown up. He had fallen. We called Hatzal. They took him right away to the hospital, and then never really completely recovered. But Daniel took care of him with such dedication. He would do shifts for 36 hours, and then you're supposed to go home and take a nap for 12 hours. He would come home, take a shower, go right back to the hospital. I remember Daniel kept on saying that, he was working around the clock for COVID. It was like exhausting physically, emotionally, and he kept saying, like, he's looking forward. He's having I think it was an important birthday coming up. He was either going to be 30, 35, 40, I don't remember, probably 40. And he said, I'm taking this day off. I'm going to a beach. I'm not telling anybody which beach. I'm not taking my phone. I'm taking a Corona. That's a kind of a beer. I'm taking a Corona. I'm going to the beach, and I'm not telling anybody. I'm taking the day off. The night before his birthday, my father had a very, very severe setback. And I called Daniel. I said, Daniel, I know you've been planning this hush of birthday for the last 6 months, but it's not happening. You're going to be spending all day tomorrow in the emergency room again. And he did it b'simcha gadol. So again, thank you, Daniel. I can never thank you enough. And again, on behalf of the Heller Lehrfield families, thank you all for coming and being mishtatif in this incredible simcha. And the schus of my father should give the real shatat d'smaya to the Beis Medrash. We should continue in his legacy. We should see nachas from all of our children, all of our talmidim. Ksiva chasem tova. Thank you very much.
Okay, as we ready for our music and dancing by Shlomo Simcha, I'd like to call Mr. Amram Adar to join our Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Neumann, to affix the Mezuzah on the Beis Medrash door. Just a note, the cloth for this Mezuzah was prepared from its origin by Rabbi Shaya Kaganoff, our beloved Rebbe, and his Talmidim at Roar Middle School. They're going to be affixing the Mezuzah. As soon as the nail goes in, we will start the music. If I can ask the Talmidim to help us stack the chairs now as we get ready for the dancing. Thank you very much, everyone. Please help us stack the chairs, Talmidim, Bachrim. Just stack them, and as many go up. 12, 15-foot ceilings. With the thanks of the Rebbeinu Shalom, this event continues. The folding chairs can be just brought to the back of the Beis Medrash. Someone give me a thumbs up when the mezuzah is up. The mezuzah is up, Tzvi.
Ready to go. Now? 10 seconds. He's going to give you the signal. They're putting up the mezuzah. They might have done it already. He's going to give us a signal and we're bang.
Okay.
Yeah. Ready to go? We're ready. They're ready. They're ready. Yeah. Mazel tov, simen tov, yeah. Heilan nu lechol Yisroel, simen tov, mazel tov, simen tov, yeah. Heilan nu lechol Yisroel, simen tov, mazel tov, simen tov, yeah. Heilan nu lechol Yisroel, simen tov, mazel tov, simen tov, yeah. Heilan nu lechol Yisroel, tira, ya, tira, la, tira, oh yeah, yeah, did it like did it my yeah, did oh yo my yeah, did it like did it did it like did it oh yo. We are shrei mi shekodoy batoyro. Hey, yamolo yibatoyro. Oh, yashrei mi shekodoy batoyro. Hey, yamolo yibatoyro. Ashrei mi shekodoy batoyro. Hey, yamolo yibatoyro. V'yo yise nachas ruach. V'yo yise nachas ruach. Nachas ruach. Oy oy oy, ashrei mi, shekadoy batoyro, veyamol batoyro, ay ashrei mi, shekadoy batoyro, oy oy oy, veyamol batoyro. Ashrei mi, shekadoy bato Yehidot soin mil von nevecho Yehidot soin mil von nevecho Vishet yishre shechino V'maseh yedechem Yehidot soin mil von nevecho Yehidot soin mil von nevecho Vishet yishre shechino V'maseh yedechem Yehidot soin Zawawawawai matzliach Im Bais Moshiach Hay bin shichai chale gleich Lo mir solche sein Zawawawawai matzliach Im Bais Moshiach Bin shichai alle gleich Lo mir solche sein Ho, ho, hoi Ho, ho, hoi Yehidot soin mil von nevecho Yehidot soin mil von nevecho Vishet yishre shechino V'maseh yedechem Yehidot soin mil von nevecho Yehidot soin mil von nevecho Vishet yishre shechino V'maseh yedechem Yehidot soin Oy zavavavavai matzliach in Bais Mashiach Living Shichai Chale gleich Lo mir solche sein Zawavavai matzliach in Bais Mashiach Living Shichai Chale gleich Lo mir solche sein manoyim sheves achim achim gam yochado hine matoy vu manoyim sheves achim gam yochad ay 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 hine matoy vu manoyim sheves achim achim gam yochad hine matoy vu manoyim sheves achim gam yochad tirai ay tirai ay 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 hine matoy Ay 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 sheves achim achim gam yochad tirai 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 oy 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 nei matoy oy manoyim ay 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 sheves achim gam yochad matoy vu manoyim sheves achim achim gam yochadot hine matoy vu manoyim sheves achim gam yochad ay 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 hine matoy vu manoyim sheves achim achim gam yochad hine matoy vu manoyim sheves achim gam yochad hoy tirido tirai ai 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 nei mato ai umano yi we sheve sachim achim gam yocha oy oy sheikhem tamdei chachomim sheikhem tamdei chachomim shedivrei toiro chava bidin aleichem yoisem shedivrei toiro chava bidin aleichem yoisem oy 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 mo havati visoiro secho visoiro secho kol ayoy isicho si ay mo havati visoiro secho kol ayoy isicho si ay shleichem tamidei chachomim shedivrei toiro Habibin aleichem oy oy asheichem talmidei chachomim shedivrei toiro Habibin aleichem Ashreichem talmidei chachomim Ashreichem talmidei chachomim shedivrei toiro chavivin aleichem v'yoiseh shedivrei toiro chavivin aleichem v'yoiseh oy 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 bo havati soiro secho soiro secho kol ayoim isicho si ay mo havati soiro secho kol ayoim isicho si oy 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 asheichem talmidei chachomim shedivrei toiro chavivin aleichem mo ahavti soiro secho kol ayoy misichosi mo ahavti soiro secho kol ayoy misichosi oy mo ahavti soiro secho kol ayoy misichosi mo ahavti soiro secho ay kol ayoy misichosi ay mo ahavti soiro secho kol ayoy misichosi mo ahavti soiro secho kol ayoy misichosi ay mo ahavti soiro secho kol ayoy misichosi mo ahavti soiro secho kol ayoy misichosi ay 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 mo di soy da secho kol ay ay bi si khasi mo di soy da secho kol ay ay bi si khosi ay 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 mo di soy da secho kol ay ay bi si khasi oy mo di soy da secho kol ay ay bi si khosi Oy achivenu Hashem melecho v'no shuvo Oy achivenu Hashem melecho v'no shuvo Achivenu Hashem melecho v'no shuvo Hashemeinu yameinu kegedem Achivenu Hashem melecho v'no shuvo Hashemeinu yameinu kegedem Hadeshameinu Kekedem Ashivenu Hashem melecho v'no shuvo Hadeshameinu yameinu kekedem Ashivenu Hashem melecho v'no shuvo Hadeshameinu yameinu kekedem Parnas toivo gezeires toivo is shuois wenn khomoy mi zoche wenn ikose lefonecho anachnu v'chol am Habayis Yisrael chayim toivim hayul shavaloim anachnu v'chol am Habayis Yisrael chayim toivim hayul shavaloim Oy oy anachnu v'chol am Habayis Yisrael chayim toivim u'lesholom anachnu v'chol am Habayis Yisrael chayim toivim u'lesholom Cheyovanu v'kiyimonu v'yiyonu lazman hazeh 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 Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam shehecheyonu v'kiyimonu v'yiyonu lazman hazeh Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam shehecheyonu v'kiyimonu v'yiyonu lazman hazeh Chechayonu, Kiyamonu, Kiyonu, Manase, Chechayonu, Kiyamonu, Kiyonu, Manase, Boruchato Hashem, Eloi Keinu Melech Olam, Chechayonu, Kiyamonu, Kiyonu, Manase, Hoy Boruchato Hashem, Eloi Keinu Melech Olam. No, that's my nase. Hey. Hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Elokai, v'yesmecho, v'yosimo, v'osimo, sigvosiboy, v'osimo, sigvosiboy. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Elokai, v'yesmecho, v'yosimo, v'osimo, sigvosiboy, v'yosimo, sigvosiboy. Ahoy denu, so we dam kiro you like suri exerzevo ay deni ahoy deni so we dam kiro you like suri exerzevo hallelujah hallelujah elokai yes mecho gute Sache lernen teure ist die beste Sache was man jetzt jo lernen teure noch oi la mabo is a gute Sache oi la mabo is a gute Sache lernen teure ist die beste Sache was man jetzt jo lernen teure noch oi la mabo is a gute Sache Hartonu oy oy mikolo amim ato isonu verotsi sapodu primam tonu mikolam shinois sabonu rimam tonu mikol al shoyndoy beyato bekhareto vendu oy 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 mikol wa min o so isonu virati sabonu rimam tonu mikol al shoyndoy o so isonu virati sabonu rimam tonu mikol al shoyndoy bekina stondo be mitzvah secho be mitzvah secho bekina stondo Shabbos zum wurde shvi kei do isadoy na sholoy hadish Shabbos zum wurde shvi miya ay liam dushne yoyne ay miya big dusha ay liam dushne yoyne liam dushne yoyne Ay, 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 oh, meni ach big dusha. Ay, liam dushnei, oh, oinek, liam dushnei, oinek, zeichen. ay ay tiridai lai tiridai lai da 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 tiridai tiridim mai tiridim tai tiridim mai tirida da lai lai tiridai la ai lai da 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 tirida tirida tiridai lai la tirida ah tirida tiridai lai la tiridai tirida tiridai tirida tiridai lai la tirida ah tirida tiridai lai la tirida ah da 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 tiridai lai lai ya mai ai ai lam tiridai lai lai tirida tirida da 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 lai lai tiridai lai 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 tiridai lai 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 tiridai lai lai tirida 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 da 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 ai dai dam tiridai dai dam tiridai lai lai dam tiridai lai lai ya mai ai ai tirida hey da 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 lai lam tirida da 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 lai lam da da lai la da lai lam tiridai lai la tirida hey Hoy mi hu ze vi ze hu ze kayli vi am ve hu mi hu ze vi ze hu ze kayli vi am ve hu le chai oy lamim zu wemmen le chai oy lamim le chai oy lamim zu wemmen le chai oy lamim li le chai oy lamim le chai oy lamim What it is we owe mundo le chai oy lamim Happy no via broccole chai oy lamim magavo via dulo le chai oy lamim Mateo ve hadivo le chai oy lamim mi hu ze ze keli Hai mi hu ze keli vi am the yo le chai oy lamim zu wemmen Oy le mi zu wemmen le chai oy lamim le chai oy lamim zu wemmen le chai oy lamim Mati shehoyu oimrim shehoyu oimrim Shomati shehoyu oimrim shehoyu oimrim Shomati shehoyu oimrim shehoyu oimrim Shomati shehoyu oimrim shehoyu oimrim Ashrei mi shebolachan ve Talmud oibeyotoy 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 Oh, yo, Yerushalayim, ayo Yerushalayim 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 ayo Yerushalayim Mazel Tov. Thank you, Penny Yosreicha. Thank you. Ay chofetz chayir, ay chofetz chayir, ay chofetz chayim, ay yoyrok sheloylo, chofetz chayim, ay chofetz chayim, chofetz chayim, ay yoyrok sheloylo, chofetz chayim. Chofetz chayim, chofetz chayim, oiro shelaylo. Mazel tov. Okay, we have time for 2 songs kumzits if you want. Koroi eilecho tovor meyavoi beficho uvilevavcho la soy ki koroi eilecho Hadovo meyavoi beficho uvilevavcho la soizo la 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 la. Did I la 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 Did I la 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 Did I la 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 Did I la 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 Samchayinu, v'samchayinu, v'sikunu, v'hoshim koyanim la'avoda v'somos, u'levim l'shirom u'lezimrom, v'hoshev Yisroel li'neveyem. V'yareinu, v'yareinu, b'vinyono, Oy besikunu V'oshik koyanim la'avoda v'somos U'levim l'shirom u'lezimrom V'hoshev Yisroel li'neveyem Oy ושום נעלה נעלה ונראה ונשתחווה לפונך ושום נעלה נעלה ונראה אוי ונשתחווה לפונך ay benay 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 vayischo benay vayischo benay vayischo kivat khilo shikoyanim lavoy dovosom ulevim leshirom ulezimedom oshay yisroel lekvaya ay 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 benay 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 vayischo v'yoshikoyanim lavoy dovosom ulevim leshirom ulezimedom v'yoshev Yisrael oy 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 v'chal zayis v'chal zayis v'chal zayis shimchal yishachachno v'chal zayis shimchal yishachachno ay now al tishkach מכניס רחמים הכניס רחמנו לפני בעל רחמים משמיע תפילו השמיע תפילו זיינו לפני שומע תפילו משמיע זיוקו השמיע צעקוסנו אוי לפני שומע זיוקו מכניסי הכניסו דמויסנו לפני מלך ניסצה בדמו השתדלו וירבו תחינו אוי אוי וירבו למענך אלוהינו עשה ולא ילבנו ראי עמידותינו דלים וריקים למענך אלוהינו עמידותינו מדלים וריקים ויענשום לך ויגוב לו חוסו ויעלם Simachtim beweis te filosi Vavio yisim el harekovochi Simachtim beweis te filosi Yo lo yisayem Hashem Elokeinu V'chuvos v'rachem V'chuvos v'rachem Oleinu Shema Koileinu Chuz verachem Oleinu Hashiveinu Hashem Eveilecho Hashem Eveilecho Oyveno Shuvo Yashiveinu Oy, 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 Yakili, Efraim, Im Yeled Shawashuyim, Shashuyim, Kimide, oy, 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 Kimide. Brivoy, Zochoy, yes, Kedebenu, Oy, yes, Kedenu, Aleke, Yom Ureme, Ayno, Yo, 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 Yerachem, Arachamenu, Niyom, Niyom, Hashem, Aleke, Yom Ureme, Ayno, Yo, 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 Yerachem, Arachamenu, Niyom, Niyom, Hashem. Ksiva v'chsima toiva, good gewünschte Jahr. Shana toiva Mezuzah, thank you. You should fill this base of Medrash with the real Shira Hazois, HaTorah. And in your schus, we should be zoicha to the Geula of Mashiach. Thank you. Thank you, Penny.
Alumni, the program will be starting in the auditorium shortly. Please make your way to the auditorium, alumni.
Tibor Zelagui, please come to the stage. Tibor.